Hello, friends. Welcome to our conversation. Today, I have the great privilege of speaking to someone I met recently. His name is Ian Pai, and he's going to join us soon. So, I am is Korean American. He's had an extraordinary life, but we're going to share some very interesting things about Shaktipat, energy transmission, awakening, since that's the theme this year, as this book is also being released. Awakening, the path to freedom and enlightenment. So I am came into my life only a few weeks ago when he was taking care. He was the custodian of an extraordinary painting on the Buddha thangka, and he came to deliver it, and we started having a conversation. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah,
Good.
wonderful. Happy New Year. Wonderful
Happy
to
New
see you
Year
again.
to you as well. So, what we should start this conversation with is a little bit about your life, where you grew up,
hmm
your musical career, and then we'll move on. So, share with our audience a little bit about you, your musical career, where you grew up, what your interests were.
Yeah. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Was born here in 1968, and I was drawn to the arts at a pretty young age. I joined the American Ballet Theater as a child, performing at Lincoln Center, roughly from the age of 9 to 12 or 13. And I sort of stayed involved in dance for a bit. I was a bit of a break dancer as a teenager, and then started moving into music and playing in bands in high school and college. I went to college at Macalester College in Minnesota, and then transferred to Pratt Institute, where I studied painting. So my father's an artist, and I was always interested in arts and always supported in that area, thankfully. And when I got to Pratt, after my first year there, I had a friend who was one of the musicians in the Blue Man Group,
In
and
which group?
Blue Man Group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well-known group.
yeah, yeah. And he invited me down. They were looking for a musician who was also an artist who could also build things, and that began a very long journey with that group. And while I was with them, I had side projects with other bands and other performance projects. And probably up until um, 2010, 2012, uh, maybe even a little bit later, I was touring and recording with bands. And um, I had not really uh, gone too far into the painting area where I studied at Pratt. I did have some shows, but I sort of preferred being with people and collaborating and helping create live experiences for people. And then after that, I ended up getting involved a little bit in the psychedelic medicine community, and ended up becoming a guide for many years up until a bit recently. Served as a mentor to a lot of people who are facilitating now. And that really brought me to my path of exploring consciousness on a much deeper level.
So you were basically uh, taking people through plant journeys, plant medicine journeys.
Yes.
Okay. So that led to something else.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was kind of, had um, was reaching all these different states of consciousness, awareness, and in my mind at the time, I thought it was the different medicines that I was experimenting with. But I started finding that, especially in the later years, that it didn't matter what medicine or what kind of ceremony I was participating in, I was sort of ending up in the same place. And the place was one of unity, of connection, of timelessness, spaciousness, and uh, I was trying to find a way to be there all the time. It would be the sort of the morning after, and I try to keep the feeling there, and eventually I would have to go to the bathroom. I would have to eat food. I'd have to go home. I'd have to face, people in the city and family members, and it would very quickly wash away. But and so somehow I started meditating. I had this feeling that that was the way to maybe stabilize some of these states of consciousness. And I started out very, very unstructured, just sitting quietly for hours and hours. And I was looking for teachers, I was looking for guides, but nobody appeared that resonated with me. I felt like I'd had experiences that I couldn't explain, and the teachers that I was meeting couldn't explain them either. And so I just stayed on this path. And yeah, one day I was deep in a meditation, and I felt a very intense energy coming over me, and I didn't know what it was. And um, all of a sudden, Krishna's name came to me, and
Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah, I really knew nothing about him, very little, just the basics. And the thing that was so startling, I mean, besides the immense energy, was he was showing me things in my mind's eye, the creation and destruction of the universe over and over, and it was startling detail. And nothing was said. There were no words. It was just these images over and over and over again. And after, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours of this, I felt a huge surge of energy come up my spine. And probably for the next 5 or 6 hours, I went through a big Kundalini awakening. I
Where were
didn't.
you at this time? In New
I,
York?
I was in New York. I was at home, and yeah, I didn't know what a Kundalini awakening was. I really had no understanding of what was happening. And but very quickly after that, a lot of synchronicities happened. The very next day, a friend called and said, you have to come to LA and meet this guru. And I thought, well, this has got to be a sign. I have to meet this guy. And when I went to LA and was waiting with the people for his arrival, I found out that the day that I had this awakening was Krishna's birthday. So that was also, so it's all like, and I'm trying to figure out all these things, and also like a very, obviously a very, very deep culture, and not knowing where to begin or how to start, and looking things up, but not knowing what I was looking at, and it was all very confusing. Um, but I met this guru, and when I went to this place, there was a little statue of Krishna next to his seat. So I felt like that was another sign. And when I met him, he manifested a small amulet of Durga, and I didn't know who she was or why her. Had no, wasn't able to connect the.
How old? We don't need to go into the guru's name. How old was the guru?
I think he's about close to 80.
And was he Indian or
Indian,
Western? And
Indian,
was he visiting or what?
visiting. Yeah,
Okay, okay, go ahead.
yeah. So, and then after that, just more things would unfold. My second visitor was Durga. She showed up a couple months later, and she told me that basically that my life was about to change, and that she was going to put an ability into my hands, and that I was going to heal people from now on. And I didn't know what that meant. I did know that when she told me this, that it was a big honor. My body went into spontaneous yogic positions, and I was weeping uncontrollably. And but my mind, the person who's here in this body on this planet, was more just witnessing something that was happening to me. I could because I couldn't comprehend it with my mind, so I just uh, witnessed. She told me a lot of things about people, which I think was to validate or for me to verify that what I was hearing was real. I could feel the energy in my hands. I knew something had changed in me physically. And then she told me that I was going to work on. She gave me in order the first 10 people that I would work on. And she told me I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? How do I do it? And she just said, um, open the portal, which somehow I knew how to do, and put your hands on their heads, and then you'll know what to do. And that is how I started about 3.5 years ago.
But you told me when we met that you went to India for a while.
Yeah, that happened afterwards.
Oh, well, about when?
La About a year ago.
Okay, tell
Yeah.
me about that.
So, all this time I was in a lot of disbelief. It was just hard for me to understand all the things that were happening. But anytime I tried to do something else, or tried to ignore what I was being told, everything would just fall apart. It just would become difficult. Things that I was used to doing, that I was quite good at, couldn't come together. I was just hitting obstacles, like all different kinds. And the only thing that would work out, which was to do what I was being instructed to do. And that was essentially to stop working and to sit in meditation a lot and to go through all of my savings. And, I mean, all of this stuff was like, I was like, this sounds, how do I explain this to somebody? How do, my parents are like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I'm studying. And I was told that by the time I was told that I was going to go to India and I would understand everything once I got back from India. And a trip magically appeared. Really, 2 days after I got this message. And so I went to India, and from the moment I got there, everything made sense. It just, uh, I realized that in the culture here in the United States, we don't really believe. I mean, I call it magic, but I do think that it's something that every human is capable of. Everyone has the abilities and the access. It's just not the awareness. And in India, it's more commonplace for people to have healing abilities, transmission abilities. The energy of spirit is everywhere, and all different kinds. And I I understood. I was like, oh, this is natural. Like what's happening to me is normal. And yes, unique for a person here, but this is something that's been forgotten. So when I got back from India,
No, no, tell me, where all did you go in India? Who did you meet?
we went kind of everywhere. We started out in Delhi. We went to Rishikesh. In Rishikesh, I met a guy named Swami Brahmananda David Now. He was from the lineage of Muktananda. I happened to hear him speaking on a podcast, and I thought, oh, this sounds like a great teacher for me to meet. I can't wait to get back to the United States. And then the interviewer asked him where he was living, and he said he was living in Rishikesh, and that was the place that we were just driving into.
And he was American, Indian, or what?
American.
American.
Yeah,
Okay,
American.
go ahead.
But he'd been living there for a long time and had been bringing meditation to schools there, and he's a great scholar and practitioner, just a great guy and full of knowledge, and very lucky to have him helping me through this process. One
How
of
long were you in India?
6 weeks.
I see. What else did you do in India?
We went to a lot of the major sites. Went to Hardwar. Saw a lot of the different kinds of artis, and um, we went to Vrindavan and went to a old Krishna temple there, and had a very magical experience where we met the head priest. He just invited us in, and even our tour guide was asking, he was like, "How did you meet him?" And I was like, "He just asked us if we wanted to come in." Um, so everything felt aligned. Everything felt very synchronistic. We met some other people that we were invited to meet, and received different kinds of blessings, different kinds of attunements and alignments, and yeah, it felt incredibly special, and sitting with Brahmananda, I participated in my first Shaktipat intensive. At that point, I was very drawn to Shaktipat. I was very drawn to Kundalini. I read tons of books, which was both helpful and not helpful, because I've come to realize they're such unique experiences, and some of these books sort of lead you to believe that it's going to be like a singular kind of experience. And I was seeking a singular kind of experience, not realizing that I was having a completely different experience. Um, and even in the Shaktipat ritual, um, I there was a knowing, I sort of knew what was happening. I felt very comfortable there, and it was sort of like a dream. The Shakti didn't really hit me until after we left, and then my whole body was completely filled for weeks, and even until well after I came back to New York.
Your whole body was filled with what?
Shakti with this incredible
Energy.
energy. Yeah,
Was
incredible,
it joyful? Was it uncomfortable?
joyful,
Hmm.
completely uplifting, joyful. I think this is the kind of transmission that Brahmananda gives in general. It's anytime I'm around him or speak to him, it's a very bright kind of energy. I've received transmissions from a couple of other people, and I see that each person has their own sort of signature, which I'm sure you understand. So
So then, after you left India, you came back and you started doing sessions with people, right?
yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So I was when I got back, a few different people came into my life that were well versed in Shaktipat and Kundalini, and I asked if I could give them a transmission just to see if how I was feeling and what I was being told was true, and they verified what was happening, and um, somehow I got the idea that I could do this online, because one of the things that Durga told me was that I would be healing people alone in a room. Like I would be alone in a room, and I would be healing people outside of the room. So I assumed at that point that it was a Zoom situation. And so I called a couple of friends and I gave them a 10-minute transmission and it worked on them. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to study, I'm going to do all these things and prepare because I don't want to just throw something out there. And as I was thinking this, I heard Durga's voice and she said, "You're going to do this now. You're going to email a bunch of friends and or contact a bunch of friends and um, you're going to do a transmission tomorrow." And so I emailed 20 friends, 40 friends showed up and did a half-hour transmission. And just about every single person had an experience. And after that, and that was about a year ago. And after that, I just started doing 3 transmissions a week and learned as I was doing it. Um, uh, I had to practice a lot to learn the basics. But the interesting thing now is that when I transmit, it's mostly about being completely out of the way. So it's no effort, no trying, really just being still, stillness of mind, stillness of body, and allowing the energies to come through, and for the people who are in agreement and participating to also connect with that field.
So where are you now? Meaning in your life, what are you doing these days?
So I just made the commitment to do this full time. Everything was leading towards it, and I've learned to listen to my body, which I didn't listen to for many, many years. And I work with people individually. I work with groups in both in person and online, and sometimes just on the phone, doing different kinds of it's sort of three sort of things that are happening. One is healing. The other one is mentoring. So I mentor guides who work with either energy or different kinds of medicines. Um, and uh, and then I'm also helping people awaken their consciousness. And that they all seem to be part of the same thing. Most of the people who are drawn to me, who come into my community, are either healers or they don't know they're going to be healers, but they're going to be healers. And it doesn't mean that they're going to strictly do healing. Sometimes, people can be in any other sort of occupation, but still have a very strong healing influence. Most people have different psychic abilities that tend to open up during the transmissions. And yeah, it's just, I can only speak from what I'm noticing in the experience. None of this has been planned or it hasn't been a goal. It's just been what's been happening very consistently.
Do you have psychic abilities?
I do at this point, yes.
Like
Mo
share?
Mostly clairvoyance is quite strong. Cognizance. So clairvoyance is clear seeing, so it's visions. I see both with my eyes open and closed. And that has only gotten more refined as both my consciousness has expanded and my abilities as a energy transmitter. I have claircognizance, which is clear knowing. That is probably the easiest one because the knowledge is all of a sudden somehow just there. I had clairaudience more earlier, but after an awakening that I had in August, um, I feel like the attention has been mostly placed on clairvoyance and claircognizance. I have a bit of clairsentience where I can feel people, feel situations. So sometimes when I'm talking to somebody who's looking for a healing, I can feel where the energy is stuck in their body or where they're feeling pain or what needs attention. Um, but yeah, I'm still quite a beginner with understanding how to navigate these abilities. And after spending some time with some psychic mediums, I've learned that it's actually really, really important to have a solid foundation, to know how to interpret symbols, to know how to be clean with how you're interacting with people. So I'm continuing and looking forward to learning more about how to use these abilities in a responsible way, because I think that's really important.
So I'm going to share with you my interpretation. I'm going to share with the audience my interpretation. And let me start by saying is that as a medical doctor, you know, I've always been skeptical, even cynical about so-called healing. Uh, my training never even used the word healing. We never used the word healing. Use the word treatment or practice or whatever, because in my profession, if you use the word healing, you're a fraud.
Hmm.
And I've lived with that kind of uh, bias all my life. Then I, of course, got involved in integrative medicine. I realized that there is such a thing as self-regulation, homeostasis, and that a return to wholeness or healing is possible through self-regulation. But as a physician, I've never made any claims, and right now, for all those who are watching us and listening to us, I'm not making any claims about your ability. And I think anyone watching this conversation can judge for themselves where you're coming from. So I'm neither endorsing nor invalidating nor validating uh, what you're saying, other than I feel your authenticity and your integrity. So let me share with you how this could be interpreted from the Vedantic tradition. As you know, this month I'm also releasing this book, uh, Awakening the Path to Freedom and Enlightenment, and you're joining us for the celebration. So the way I understand all this from a Vedantic point of view is that our fundamental reality is pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is a field of infinite possibilities. And it fluctuates as what are called in Sanskrit vrittis. Vrittis are literally fluctuations. And they occur in the form of sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, and thoughts. And when you sift through all the interpretations and all the stuff that's on the internet and in books and through masters and through spiritual teachers, to me it is very clear that any experience we have, whether it's of the body or of the world or of Krishna or of Durga, these are symbolic representations of vrittis. In other words, they are appearances in consciousness. And as such, they're not fundamentally real. They're experientially real. But fundamentally, they're appearances in consciousness, and they're the interpretation of sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, which is raw experience. So, without going into too many details, we are already doing courses on this and already doing advanced meditations on this. Without going into too many details, the fundamental insight is that if you can perceive it, you can experience it, you can conceptualize it, or you can experience it in any way, then it's not inherently real. It's a projection of consciousness. Doesn't matter if it's Krishna, Durga, your own physical body, or what we call the physical universe. These are interpretations of vrittis, which is
Mm.
fluctuations in consciousness. What is inherently real is consciousness itself, which is imperceivable and inconceivable, but gives rise to perception and conception, which we then interpret as the physical body, the physical universe, Durga, Krishna, gods, goddesses, etc. In other words, in the deeper reality, there's no universe, there's no body, there's no mind, there's no Krishna, there's no Durga. These are projections of consciousness as it recycles, evolves, conceives, constructs, governs, and becomes the experience of the universe. Having said that, it's still a lived experience. It doesn't matter if it's a projection or um, an illusion or part of the dreamscape, and our body and mind are part of that dreamscape. They're projections, and only consciousness is real. And consciousness itself is inconceivable, imperceivable, and yet without it, there's no conception or perception. So the way I would interpret everything, that you've said right now is that our body is a construct, a concept. The Buddhists call it, in fact, the conceptual body. The Vedantists call it the karmic body. And karma is unfathomable in that there is something called sanchit karma, which is the ocean of personal, collective, ancestral karma. It's unfathomable. Think of an ocean of experiences. And intellectually, that's unfathomable, sanchit karma. Then there's something called prarabdha karma, which is appearing right now. This conversation is part of the prarabdha karma. And then there are people who are listening to it. It's part of their prarabdha karma as well. And then there's something called agami karma, which is the karma we are creating right now through the choices we make, which is, you know, basically we experience only sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, but then we interact with other people who are experiencing that, and that creates karma of the future. Although if one is grounded in pure being, one can stop that from happening in the future, agami karma. But the karma that we have accumulated through lifetimes as consciousness, um, that has to play itself out. It is part of our destiny to play that self out. But as we move toward awakening, then we don't identify with it anymore. So, what I see as Kundalini experiences, Durga, Krishna, they're all a release in a way of karmic imprints. And if you were to be very simple about it in straightforward English, you would say the release of stress. Stress is karmic imprint. And it's unfathomable because, every moment we are interacting, we're engaging, we're participating, we are identifying with the experience. And so, everything that you call the Kundalini experience in healing is releasing all this. So you get ultimately to pure consciousness, which is whole to begin with. And it's the restoration of the memory of wholeness. Therefore, healing, health, wholeness all go together.
Yeah.
So, what you acquired through synchronicity is extraordinary, and I believe in its authenticity. But I'm not asking the audience to say, you know, um, that I am, for some reason, endorsing a healer or invalidating a healer. But I do believe that you are a healer, given what you have said, and that everybody has that capacity, and that these psychic abilities, clairvoyance and clairsentience and all the clarity of knowing, these are non-local dormant potentials that exist in all of us. If you read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, chapter 3 is all about this. And in fact, I have a course going on right now on about these extraordinary abilities, which come at the end of the Eightfold Path to Awakening, which starts with Yama, Niyama, which are rules of social and personal intelligence, and then breathing techniques, pranayam, and then yogasana, and then withdrawal of the senses. And the last three steps are dharana, focused intention, and dharana, dhyan, meditation, and samadhi, transcendence, which awakens these abilities. And for those who are listening or watching us, if you go to deepakchopra.com, you'll find the introduction to this course. But having met you now, I think we could collaborate on teaching some of this um, here at the Chopra Center in New York, at the Chopra House, as we call it, and create a program for those who want to, if you're amenable to it,
Of
where
course.
we teach the classic teaching as it comes to us from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, add on to that some of the practical things that you do, and this could become an extraordinary course for the general public. And anyone who's um, listening to us or watching this, they can, we'll have a link here to an email and that Christina will add, and a link to your website too, if you have a website, and ask people if they're interested. And depending on the interest, we can see how this evolves. We can continue to call it advanced meditations for those who are wanting to understand their non-local self. So, how does that sound to you?
I mean, all of it sounds amazing. It's also, I mean, it's also really, it's so funny because it's like I only know my experience. I'm not, I have only been a student only as far as I have an experience and I research it. But what you describe, your observations from your knowledge and your experience fits in precisely with what I have experienced. So I was very, in the beginning, very enamored with the images and the symbolism, and it got actually kind of overwhelming. You know, it's like seeing angels and devas and deities, and it's a
They're on the same level as seeing New York City,
yeah,
or seeing another person,
yep,
or seeing the Milky Way galaxy. They're all projections
yes,
of non-local consciousness. But
yes,
once you understand that, then you only desire is not the drama of all this
yep,
or the extraordinary experience, but to get to the source of all that,
yep.
which is the journey to awakening.
Yes, yes, and it was so important. I mean, and I know that you are really interested. I've read some of heard some of your talks about um, using AI as a tool it actually was so helpful for me to understand the things that I was experiencing. I couldn't call my teachers every single time something happened because I would be calling them 100 times a day, and then they would probably no longer want to be my teacher. And it really helped me actually ground the experience and recognize that the symbolism and the story is really like how we see our reality, as human beings on this earth. But underneath that is um, geometry, vibrations, patterns. And so once I moved past and even saying past doesn't really make sense because this is actually what's underneath everything. It's what everything is built upon. So as things started to peel away and become revealed, and this is why I'm convinced that everyone has these abilities.
Yeah.
They're just covered up by belief systems, projections, stories, and the more one is able to release these and uh, the access to where consciousness is connected becomes much, much more available.
Yes. So what you've said is very important. Your body is a symbol, your mind is a symbolic representation, the world is a symbolic representation, the universe is a symbolic representation, but ultimate reality is non-symbolic. Ultimate reality cannot be perceived or conceived and is non-symbolic. To rest in that is the awakened self.
Yes.
And to recognize that even the geometry, even the energy, that's all symbolic representation of the one reality, which is the divine self.
Yes.
And that self is the self of the individual, but also the self of the universe.
Yeah.
That's what this book, by the way, is about. And so I think the next step is for you, me, and we can get Christina together and create a curriculum for training, which could be both on Zoom but also live here occasionally at our center. And in the meanwhile, we'll see what the interest is and how people, after listening to this conversation, uh, select themselves out into this. But anyone who's watching this conversation, listening to it, don't do it for the theatrical effects or the drama. Do it because you want to awaken to the non symbolic self, which is also freedom from suffering and freedom from samsara. And the Kundalini experiences the release of all that karmic overload that we have inherited as human beings and symbolic signatures of the one divine consciousness. So I'm very grateful that we met and hope to continue this. And hopefully, something very useful will come out of it. And everyone, stay tuned for more information, more courses, more understanding, and more freedom from constructs to get to the source of all constructs, which is the true self. So I'm very grateful for this conversation, Ian, and let's see where and how this unfolds spontaneously without
Yes.
too much planning.
Yeah.
Thank you once again.